Hello, you. On today's show, we'll be asking, how do you get support in Spain as an expat if you're facing problems, for example, with declining health as you grow old, or losing a partner, or anything you may think you've planned ahead for that turns out to be not quite what you'd expected? I'll be joined shortly on the virtual settee by two very experienced helpers from the charity Age in Spain, who'll be giving us the benefit of their experience. So stick around, ask questions, give us a wave, hit the like button, and get yourself a mention on the live chat or in the comments below. So gather round. It's time for our small but perfectly formed cosmic theme tune. Let's dance. Well, wasn't that groovy? Went a bit wobbly in the middle there. Just before I bring in our lovely guests, don't forget to make a note of our website, YouTooSpain.com, where you can find loads of extra resources and links that you need for your move to Spain and for living here. There's a free newsletter at the beginning of every month, so sign up for that. Doesn't cost you a penny. And also check out all of the other links in the video description below down there. Use those links and it helps YouTooSpain without costing you a cent. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. There you go. Speaking of which, we now have just about all of our most popular YouTooSpain catchphrases on t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and other stuff. And you'll see them. I'll pop some of them up on the screen as we go along. And any that you want to see that don't exist anymore, or different colors of shirts, then give me a shout and I'll sort it out. So without further ado, let's meet our lovely guests for today. I'll have to bring them up one at a time. First of all, support coordinator Kate Locke. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Good. Let's get Mona on the screen. Good morning, Mona.
Good morning.
Good. How are you both? Are you both in Spain?
Yes.
Yep. I'm near Barcelona.
I'm actually too near Barcelona.
Oh, yeah, we're near each other. Yeah, that's true.
There you go. So you're up north and I'm down south there. Those are the mountains near the coast. So here we go. Let's find out just quickly who's on the live chat. We've had a question actually from Lee Stratford, which we'll answer in a second. Good morning, Lee. Good morning, Susan McGee and AK Mitchell, and Kez and John McClue. Good morning, Skatz. Great show, he says. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure we're about 20 or 30 seconds behind on the live feed because there's a delay on that. Oh, good morning, Robin Villa, who has asked a question on Facebook. So you're with us this morning. Good. We'll answer your question later. And that's all at the moment. And I'll say hello to everybody else as they arrive. So, Heather Patrick, good morning. And okay then. So let's get into it. First of all, Kate, tell us briefly what you do at Age in Spain.
I am the casework manager, and I have two functions. I help the Infoline with complex health and social care questions, and also we provide a specific service for people who've served in the British Armed Forces, and I provide help with them to get grants to get and navigate into the social and healthcare systems. And generally, because of my health and social care background, I help with the more complex health and social care inquiries that come into Age in Spain.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. And now, Mona, you're on the Age in Spain info line, aren't you? So tell us a bit about that. What kind of calls do you deal with?
I've been on the info line for 3 years now, and the calls we get now basically range from people asking for information about visas, how to come to live in Spain, or people who are in Spain, how they can regularize their situation, also how to access healthcare here, how to deal with healthcare before they come to Spain, and then a variety of other subjects like driving license and pet care and things like that. It's a good hodgepodge of queries.
Excellent. You said the other day to me it's an info line, not a helpline, and some calls you refer to the embassy of the caller's country of origin. Is there a way you can define the difference between what Age in Spain can deal with and what should be dealt with by the embassy? Is there a line you can draw between their responsibilities and yours?
Well, it's very difficult for us to say that because we help English speakers here in Spain. So each English speaker may come from a different country. Therefore, there is always signposting to their consulates, and we do not profess to know what the scope of all the embassies are that are based here in Spain. But we generally have a dividing line. When people ring and they have an emergency or an urgent situation, we always refer them to the Spanish emergency services, and then to the country, their embassy, for additional support. And we certainly know we get a lot of calls from English people, and we certainly know that the British consulate has a 24-hour emergency call line from the Foreign Office in the UK. So that's kind of the general thing. We provide information, but we're not a helpline. We're not an emergency service in any way. We're not open. We're only open 3 days a week.
Excellent. So Lee Stratford asked a question before we started the show today, but it's still showing on my screen. So let's get that one out the way first before it disappears up the chat. He's saying, let's put it on screen. He's in the process of filling in forms and collecting documents for a non-lucrative visa. Need help? Does anyone have a definitive checklist of what documents need to be apostilled and translated? Many thanks, Lee. Is that one for you, Mona?
Right. No, we don't have a definitive document or checklist because this depends on where you come from. Please, when you contact Infoline, please don't assume that we know where you are from, because we help people from all around the world, mostly English speakers, of course, and mostly people from the UK. But still, without knowing where you're from, where you are now, what your situation, your particular situation, no, we don't have a checklist for everyone.
And that's a big, it depends.
Exactly.
That's our biggest catchphrase. That's why it stretches across the whole screen, because most questions have got an it depends.
Yeah.
So Lee, maybe tell us a little bit about, obviously not everybody needs to know your personal circumstances, but if you can make it a little bit clearer, where are you from? I think you're from the UK because you've been on the live chat before.
We do have an extensive amount of information guides. So Lee, maybe you'd like to check out our information guides and see which one applies to you, because we do aim to provide as much information as possible on our website.
Right. Or contact us directly.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you for the question there, Lee. Okay, so we're talking broadly about supporting expats, or immigrants, as I prefer to call it. And we should definitely mention the new online guide that Age in Spain have released. Let me just show a picture of this on screen while I'm talking about it. There's the guide.
It's on my screen save.
Yeah, I've got it several. I've got the front page on there, and this is the whole guide. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And yeah, it's all on my desktop. It's wonderful. It's really comprehensive, and I would highly recommend it to everybody. Put it on your desktop, and really, I wouldn't print it out if I was you, because there's 146 pages.
Yeah.
You'll be killing several trees there. But it's easily downloadable from the ageinspain.org website, and also the Infoline number is there too, as is an email address, and they're also in the video description. I never know what to call that. The description of the video below this video, and below a lot of our videos as well. It's on there. And I did speak to your boss, John Rafferty, on the show very recently. So we've already had an overview of the guide. Today, we're looking in particular at chapter 16. There's all the chapters, lots and lots of information there. Chapter 16 is called When We Need Support. It's quite a big chapter because it's a big topic. So,
Yeah.
Kate, give us a quick summary of that chapter.
Really, it's a very user-friendly, readable chapter on quite a difficult subject that sometimes I think, we don't focus on. We don't necessarily all focus on growing older, becoming dependent, and sadly, eventually dying. And it's a guide that talks about where to get support in Spain, from the Spanish social services and from the Spanish health service. It also talks about really practical things like that it touches on subjects where people may need a power of attorney and the function of a power of attorney and how useful that can be. And it also has a brief section on when people die and how to manage when people die here in Spain as well. So yes, have a read. It's very comprehensive. And then if you have any other questions, call the info line.
Excellent. Sounds like health and healthcare are the biggest issues overall here. And what health issues do people call about, Mona?
Quite a wide variety again. We've been getting quite a few calls from children of people living in Spain, children of elderly people living in Spain, calling to say that their parent had a fall or had an operation. What can they do? What should be done now? What can they do from where they are, which is very, very difficult to navigate. And we help them as best as we can to contact their local social services. Caitlin would know much more about this than I, because as it says in the guide, it all depends. Again, it depends on where you are and what is available in your area.
It also depends on, where you are in your local area, because many services are regionally governed. So there are some national, laws and guidelines that set frameworks, but they are then managed regionally in each region, and there are regional variabilities. Not massive, but they are there, and certainly in terms of the paperwork and ways of accessing things, it can vary quite a lot. So, when you move to a region, find out what's available in your region. If you change your region, do the same, would be my sort of general advice. But also we shouldn't forget that when people call us, it's really important to tell us how long you've been here and what your status is, because if you're here on holiday, it's a very different issue. If you're here on a temporary, you've got a temporary residency, that guarantees you less things than if you've got permanent residency or if you're a Spanish citizen. So those sort of things are really, really important, and in terms of accessing health and social care here in Spain.
Excellent. Thank you. And good morning to Heather Patrick, Stephen Morgan, Bev, and Mike Ripper. Thanks for joining us today. It's obviously an important day for a lot of people in the UK, and we probably have fewer people rather, watching live at the moment. They'll probably be watching it afterwards. So hello to all of the people who are watching it afterwards, and hope you enjoyed your day. Okay.
I'm a Canadian, and of course I'm on the groups in Facebook, and I see many Canadians who are still in Spain saying, okay, we're going to go and live in Spain. What part of Spain is nice to live in? They always ask questions about the weather, the schools, the social life, and very, very rarely do I see someone asking about what's going to I'm 50 now, or I've just retired, I'm 55 or 60. What's going to happen in 10 years? You rarely ask important questions like that. What kind of support system is available in that area? I think it's important for people to really look ahead.
I think it's important as well that we generally look, because we can never predict when we have an accident, or we can get ill health. It happens to children, it happens to adolescents, it happens to all of us. It's really important that we understand when we move to another country that it's not the country of our origin, and things will differ. And for example, if you're living here within the first 5 years and something happens to you, your rights to disability rights, for disability to be graded with a disability and to receive social care may be different than when we've got permanent rights here. So I think it's something that you're right. I think there are many people who forget to do the research about health and social care access and fully comprehend the differences that happen when you're new into a country and you're not necessarily been contributing into the social services, the social security system that actually funds health and social care for the population here. And it's really important to do that research before you move here.
Right.
That's true. So those are the main things that people don't plan for, don't they? Have you got any more advice about that? What to do in advance?
I think do the research, call the info line, read our guides. But just think it as a factor as you would do choosing a house or choosing a school for your children. Make sure that you fully understand, if you're going to need to take private health insurance, make sure what it covers. I think it's really important that we know these sort of things.
Talking about which, we've had a question from Stephen Morgan just come in. talking about private healthcare. Is it a good idea to change from private healthcare to the Convenio system, if that's allowed?
Ona, do you have you deal with this on the information line? There is a right, isn't there, to once you've been here for a year to opt into the Convenio system, which is a form of payment into the Spanish healthcare system.
I'm sorry, I don't have a quick answer for that. I believe very few people take advantage of the Convenio system. I don't think it's the best option. I think if you've managed to get private healthcare for the first year, I would stick with the private healthcare.
I do believe it might be.
Is it top of my head?
It might be cheaper though for people who are struggling to pay for their private health insurance. But again, it's as we say, we're not here to be experts on contracting or your choices. It would really be a case of looking into it, getting the information from it, seeing what it offers and what it doesn't offer, and comparing it with the private health insurance you've had, because it's the same with looking between private health insurance contracts. You need to know what they're offering and what you're paying for. So we don't have that level of knowledge. That's a customer decision, really.
And that's a question better directed towards the I believe you'll have the email address below to the health. We have a healthcare expert here, and email that person, and they will be able to advise you much better than I.
So that email address is that health@aginspain.org.
Yes,
exactly.
I've not written that one down underneath the video. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll add that.
It's available on our webpage.
Yeah. Here we go. Oh, and I've got info@aginspain.org down below as well, which is the general one.
Right.
There we go. Thanks for your question, Stephen. So, big question then. What happens when we get to the stage when we can't look after ourselves anymore? Are there state-run old people's homes in Spain, and is it possible to access them?
Well, again, it depends how long you've been here, and it depends on your rights. It depends on your country of origin. So it's not a quick reply. When people call us, we triage these questions, and then we apply. Generally, though, yes, there is a system here in Spain to support people who have the rights to access it. It is means tested, as it is in many of the Nordic countries in Europe. It is there. There are care homes, and when people fall into the unfortunate situation that they cannot afford to purchase residential care themselves, then there is a system. But it is a system that takes a while to get into, and it requires social services assessments. It requires a panel of expert assessments who assess you, for your level of disability and also for your financial need. It comes under the umbrella of the Lady Dependencia. And we encourage people to apply for the Lady Dependencia, not at a point of crisis. If that your health and social care is changing and you're looking like you're going to need more assistance, it's really important, particularly if you're here without family, because a lot of the Spanish system, people would be supported by their sons, daughters, and extended family here, that you speak to your doctor or you speak to your social worker, and that you start the process early, because we have many people who are waiting for that process to go through, and regionally it varies on the time. There is a general rule that the whole process takes 2 years. However, the whole process may take 2 years to come to fruition, for you to get a grading of disability, to know your financial allowances, et cetera, and your rights. But there are services available to you, regionally determined, that you can be given support at home in the interim. So that's very important to know. The main thing to do is to familiarise yourself with the Lady Dependencia. We have a brief guide on that that we can provide. But also each town council area has access to a social worker that deals with dependency and assists people into that process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Excellent answer. John the Joiner is asking, good morning. We are planning to make a move to Malaga region in about 6 years. That's looking ahead. There you go. Well done. Would we register with doctor's surgery as we would in the UK, and should we bring NHS records? It's a good question. Mona?
It's a good question, yes. In the beginning, you would not be able to register with doctor's surgery. For the first 5 years, when you are on a temporary visa, a temporary permit, residency permit, you have to have private health insurance or the convenio.
Or be
And
working. If you're working, you would.
Working.
yes, that's good. Thank you. Yes, if you are working, then you are able to register. Yes. In this case, I believe the person mentions that they're coming on a non-lucrative. So, and no, above.
It didn't say that. Yeah.
No.
So no, in that case, no. Should you bring your records? Yes, of course. Bring
I
your
think
records.
I think it's always good if you can get printouts. I know when I moved to Spain, I went to my GPs and I asked for the basic printouts of all my consultations for myself and my whole family. And I brought those. I didn't actually have them translated, but I've always had them. And certainly in the first years of being here with the private health insurance issues, I did access medical services for about a year that spoke English because it was it was better for me at that time. But I have them, and if my practitioner needed them, I could get them translated. But I have a health and social care background, so for me, it's not actually that difficult to explain in Spanish what the history of my children and myself and my husband is. But yes, bring as much information as you can, so that if you're asked for it, and certainly if you're coming with a chronic condition, I definitely think bring as much as possible, but also do the research. We get calls from people who are planning ahead, who contact us, and they want to know, with the basis they've got a disability or a chronic illness, what access they will have to healthcare, what can they expect. And we've had people ringing and planning and actually make decisions not to come, because actually that first 5 years, if you're not in the social security system working and everything is granted, Spain has an excellent healthcare service, by the way. But if you are not going to get that, you have to realize that you are going to fund that. Also, I mean, in the case of people from the UK, if you leave the UK, it does not mean that you have the same rights in the NHS and you can go to and from, like many people used to do. That option is not available. So you need to really do, if you've got a chronic condition or a long-term disability, you need to do your homework on that. And I would suggest, give us a ring and we'll give you advice where we can. But we can't always give you advice either. Sometimes we would be needing to say to you, you need to speak to the Spanish social security system and get specific information for your case. We also get questions about people moving their relatives here. They live here, they work here, and they want to bring their older relatives here for care. And again, they will come in on a certain residency permit, and you need to be very careful in the case of bringing elderly relatives on what you will be entitled to get for them. Otherwise, you may be responsible for covering all of their health and social care needs, which, as we know, is exceedingly expensive as we get older.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There we go. And I've heard tell that aftercare isn't something that happens automatically in Spain like it does in the UK and Ireland, for example. The systems are all set up there. But how important is it then to chase things up here? And are Northern Europeans a little bit too passive and apologetic?
Well, there are several factors in that, and this is one we said we'd touch on as well. One of the factors is really stay on top of communication with any provider that's providing you health and social care at any point, whether you're in an assessment phase or you're in a post-care sort of phase. They will communicate with you, and you have to be able to understand Spanish. So you will receive correspondence by letters, letters generally, and telephone calls. And you need to know what they're telling you. You need to know what your aftercare is, and you need to know, because otherwise you will miss out. And we do get calls from people who say, well, I'm getting absolutely nothing. And we think, well, that's really interesting, because we know that you should be. Go back to your GP, go back to the hospital that you're at, and ask the questions. And often they've missed a key link, and they should be in rehabilitation. And there are some rehabilitation services as well. Do not make presumptions. It's interesting, because many people come from countries such as America, where aftercare is also not provided in the same way that maybe I would expect as an English person, or Skatz, you as an Irish person. But you need to know that it is different here, and you need to not carry the assumptions from your home country. You need to actually find out what is here, and you need to plan for it. And you will find there are surprises than what you are used to, particularly around hospital care.
Exactly. Yeah. John the Joiner has replied. He is coming on a non-lucrative visa, but he's also retired with an S1, so that entitles him.
Well,
does
that
entitle him
does
to
entitle
healthcare.
him. Yes.
Yes. There you go. So,
Mona, would it be good to say something about the S1 from the UK?
To say something that, well, you have to apply for, you have to bring the form, and you have to register with the INSS here in Spain. So that, don't assume that just having the form entitles you to go into the surgery and register immediately. You have to go through a procedure in Spain. We do have a guide to that on the Age in Spain webpage. But yes, you do have to do the work.
Yeah. It does work, though, and people get their healthcare with the S1, which is a really positive thing.
There used to be a problem with getting the S1 in advance because it's a bit of a catch-22. You've got to be kind of registered, and you can't register until you're here. But the consulates in the UK certainly are allowing you to have this piece of paper which says definitely will be okay and will be on the S1. So they allow you to do it in advance now.
And actually, under the pandemic, there became an online registration system, which was really helpful because before we had to try and get appointments for a very busy social security department that was very time consuming. And I do remember pulling my hair out at trying to get those appointments. So the online registration for the S1 is a bit of a blessing, really.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of little good things that have come out of COVID. It's like technology coming from war, isn't it? It's just,
it did not feel it at the time with all the problems we faced and all the calls we faced. But yes, there have definitely been some improvements.
There we go. Jenny is asking. She's a type 1 diabetic. It does worry me about getting my medication. I'm hopefully going to be moving over permanently at the end of this year. Should I get private healthcare?
Again, Jenny,
it depends.
I think you should ring the information line on a question like this because, again, it depends on where you're coming from and, your country of origin and your visa.
Yes, what do you mean by permanently? That would be my first question. Are you coming on a visa but intend to stay, and that's what you mean by permanently? Or is
with
your
a Spanish passport?
Yes, or is your residency permit permanent? We're not quite sure what you mean. So contact us directly and then we'll be able to help you. But this does raise an interesting point when we were talking earlier, because don't assume that the medication that you are using in your country of origin will be available here in Spain. Sometimes it might be something so minor but be a big issue for you. For example, I know someone who came over from the UK and found out in the springtime that their hay fever medication, the only one that worked for them, was not available here, and they were suffering. So think ahead. What am I taking now? What will I need in the future? Is it available in Spain? It's quite easy to find out.
And if you are going to be responsible for paying for it, how much does it cost? So, for example, I take medication that in the UK is given me as a free prescription for life. It's not a free prescription for life here. Fortunately, it's actually a very cheap drug here, so it has never caused me any problems. But also prescription depends on your healthcare. If you are allowed to be in the state system, it depends on your age, your work status. It's actually very, very complex. And again, we may not be able to give you the advice totally based on your circumstances, because that will be an internal decision within the healthcare service. But pensioners have different rights to prescriptions and don't necessarily pay for everything, but it does depend on the level of their pension. So it's a complex question to answer. I think in terms of the main medications that many of us depend on for life, like people with diabetes, you will be looked after. There will be that there, but whether, call us and we'll speak to you or pass you to someone else who might know.
Thank you for that. One of something I said in my notes is one of my worries is that when I get very old and start losing my marbles and only remembering things from my distant past, I'll revert to speaking only English and I'll forget all of my recent Spanish lessons. Is that a thing? Does it happen? Should I be worried?
Do you know, that's one of my biggest fears as well, because I have not found it easy to learn Spanish, and I've spent 13 years laboriously working at getting my Spanish up to a workable level, which I have. And I do come across cases where people have had a head injury or are in neurological decline, who are losing that acquired language, which fills me with horror for the amount I've actually spent on acquiring it as well. So it's definitely worth the investment. Don't get me wrong. Don't take that as an excuse to not to learn languages. That will do you far more harm. But yes, we do meet cases where that's happened, but also we do meet people who speak Spanish for life and navigate through the systems despite, age and decline too.
Yeah, may I add that we have had cases where a couple of here in Spain, and relying on the Spanish of one of the partner. So and then something happens to that person, and the person is left to care for someone without any Spanish themselves.
Yeah,
and that is really a sad situation.
And
both of you learn.
Yeah, that commonly occurs where one person goes out to work and they're working in an international setting, and the person that's at home investing in the community is the person who gets all the Spanish. And it does cause massive problems when something happens to the person who speaks Spanish, because at that point, living here so long, people do have an expectation of you speaking Spanish if you've been here 20, 30 years, and you will feel very isolated and frustrated. And, a little bit scared, I think. I think it's quite difficult to not speak Spanish here.
You've got a campaign on at the moment, haven't you? The Learning Spanish campaign. What's that all about?
Yeah, we are at Age in Spain. We believe very much in prevention and preventative action, empowering people to really take control of their lives here. Because if you do, you get the maximum amount of life here, and life is absolutely fabulous living in Spain. So we've been running a campaign about learning Spanish and the benefits of learning Spanish and the necessity of learning Spanish. And in the work that I do, which is largely linking people with the health and social care and welfare side of Spain, it is an absolute imperative. If you come on holiday and you're in the main holiday resorts, they want your money. They want to help you. You will be able to come here as a tourist and have a lovely time, and people will speak English to you largely. But go behind the scenes of tourism and access into the Spanish state. It's not a given that it's the second language here. And not everybody will speak Spanish to you, and not all the professionals. You may be lucky, you may get a medical practice where people do speak Spanish. You may get a social worker who does speak Spanish. It does happen, but it's not routine, and it's not an expectation. And when you come to do assessments, for example, when you come to meet the panel for the lady dependency, or when you need help, if you cannot explain yourself properly, then you may not graded at the level of disability grade that you would expect. And I've met people, sadly, where they're quite disabled, but because it's not a very obvious physical disability, they've not been able to express how their illness affects them on a day-to-day basis, and they've been given no disability grading. So it's really important that if you decide or you find you can't, I mean, I actually believe if I can learn Spanish, anyone can learn Spanish. I'm not unnatural. That if you really need to be aware that you need to have some money set aside for interpretation. And if you're trying to navigate something complex like oncology care, you need to make choices for yourself on options. You need to know what the options are, and understanding that you will need to take a translator. The same when you're going to the GP, the same when you're having a baby. It is fine. And it would be fine to take an advocate, like a Spanish partner who speaks Spanish. But it is always better that we all learn Spanish and we don't rely on our neighbours or friends or people, especially if we're going to have to go into an intimate discussion with a medical provider.
And also the medical language that you might need to know, maybe a friend or a neighbour might not know and might not have the depth of knowledge to translate properly. So if you really don't have the language skills, it's best to have a proper interpreter.
Right.
Yeah.
When people contact the Infoline, and I must stress that we provide information. We will tell you the order of things, where you have to go to get things done. But many of the places we are pointing you, directing you towards, are not English-speaking places, like the immigration offices or the national police. Some places,
some of the charities, the Alzheimer's charities, the people that deal with people who go blind, they will be Spanish speakers.
Right. Private companies like private health insurance or companies that or places that will help you get your driving license if you have to take the test in Spain will have it. You'll be able to do those in English. But many places no. So you have to be prepared, either speaking yourself or with a proper interpreter.
That must be scary if you're losing your sight and then all of the visual language that we speak disappears, and all you have is your verbal skills then. So learn Spanish.
Learn Spanish, and also learning Spanish opens up a whole world of richness of living here culturally. So from my point of view, it's not just a practicality, it's actually about really enjoying living in Spain and being able to have a good argument too. That's always a plus.
Yes.
Very important in Spain.
Everybody likes that. So at some point in the conversation, I was expecting to bring up the uncomfortable subject of death, but Bev's beaten me to it on the live chat there. She says it's a bit macabre. Does Spain have anything like the pure and simple cremation system?
Do we know what the pure and simple cremation system is? Sorry, Bev, I don't. It sounds quite nice, but I don't know what that is.
Maybe it's about accessing the basic services that you can get.
A cremation ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do would be to speak to a funeral director, and if you want details of funeral directors, I'm sure we could connect you to them. And I think actually the British Consulate provide details on people who do cremations here as well, because the consulate, if there is a sudden death, it is the consulate that generally helps people here, particularly people on holidays, sadly, and they are the experts for that. However, in terms of a basic cremation, there's no one left basically. There is actually something called a municipal cremation. The town council is responsible for it, and there would be a basic, but it's usually used in terms of when people have absolutely no resources. Someone like someone who unfortunately was living socially isolated, maybe homeless, then yes, there is a very basic cremation. But I think it's exactly the same as the UK. When you choose your funeral, there are options on what you get and what you use and what coffins, and I don't think there's a huge variability. The one thing to know about death here is everything happens very fast. So there is a general, unless there's been criminal activity or something, or unexplained, or something that needs investigation, which doesn't happen very often, fortunately. But you can expect to be cremated within the first 48 hours. It generally is. And if you are culturally, a lot of people are not culturally ready for that. You can delay it slightly, but the costs will go up every day. There are not the same facilities, and there is an expectation with the Spanish community, sadly, when their loved ones pass, cremate them very, very quickly.
And a lot of things happen at the same time, because if you need does the doctor need to turn up? Does do you need a coroner? Are the police involved? And everybody turns up at your door at a time of great grief, and maybe it's really good idea probably to make a funeral plan so you know what's going to happen, so you're not bombarded with questions about, do you want this, do you want that?
And definitely, I have a lot of older clients that when one of them dies, they get very burdened with the cost of paying for that funeral and whatever they put. I've just seen that Beb's asked about, a fast turnover, the ashes being returned to. I think the best thing, I think it is available, Bev. I don't know, I can't say 100% hand on heart, but I think if we could give you the details of an English speaking funeral director, which we would be able to access, you could ask. But I'm pretty certain that there are options exactly the same as the UK. And you can ask that. You can ask for the cremation, you pay, and collect the ashes later.
Okay, right. So we'll lighten things up a little bit and take a short break to have a quick message from me and my 3 alter egos about the wonderful things available to you as YouTooSpain fans. So see you shortly, and take it away, Skatz. Are you getting something helpful from this show? Are you enjoying YouTooSpain? Then click on the thumbs up and subscribe to YouTooSpain while you're here. and click on the bell for notifications. It's all free, but it's worth loads of money. I need coffee to keep my picker up. You can donate coffee to us all. There's a link in the video description below, or use the QR code. It'll be in the top left-hand corner of the screen after this message, sweetie. But that's not all. You can support YouTooSpain with a regular monthly amount. It's only a few quid. Oh, he's worth a lot more than that. There's a link below to Patreon, where you can find out what extra groovy things you get by helping out. Oh, I'm all a quiver. One more thing. Get on with it. There's an important guest twiddling their thumbs. All right, calm down. The lovely video watcher needs this. Go on then. There are lots of other links to vital things below. Like what? Well, do you need private healthcare insurance? Yes. Do you need a visa or residency? Do you need to exchange currency? What about finding a property? Or getting tax and pensions advice? Or getting a Spanish mortgage? Or getting documents translated and apostilled? Or getting a medical certificate? Or finding a lovely little app for learning Spanish? Do you need the best mobile phone provider? Or a digital business card so you never need paper ones again? Or do you just want one of YouTooSpain's t-shirts with a slogan on it? You can even get discounts on dental treatments and get a lovely little smile like Skatz. All of those links are there down below. If you can't find them, ask me in the comments. Is that everything, darling? I need to get my nails done. Probably not. But let's get back to the show, shall we? Back to Skatz in the studio. I wanted to say that. Oh, stop being beastly, you two. You too, Spain. Over to you, Skatz. Thank you, Skatz. That was awesome. And thank you, Walter, Tommy, and Dick, for joining us. Who's your favourite character, everyone? Most people seem to love Walter and hate Tommy. So, what about you? You said that, didn't you, Kate?
I said I wasn't a fan of Tommy.
No, he's deliberately very two-dimensional and very, very angry, even when he's saying something really nice. Thank you very much. Yeah. Some people really, really hate him, especially if they're from the south.
I'm from the south.
So brilliant. Let's move on with the questions then. We did. Of course, we had the question from Robin, who said, and let's put this up on screen. This one was from Facebook, and she's with us this morning.
Morning, Robin.
Morning. And she says, I'd like to know about how to volunteer and what kind of volunteer opportunities are available. And also, as a US expat, is Age in Spain a charity which would be available to me one day? That's an interesting one. Mona.
Right. You can find out about how to volunteer on our webpage. Yes, we welcome volunteers on the Infoline or for caseworkers, casework, and also Friendline. So please do contact us. There's a nice form in there that will let us know what you can do, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Also, if our volunteering isn't available for you, there are many other charities looking for volunteering. I've been volunteering for 13 years here in Spain. So yes, there are lots of opportunities in Spain, both in the Spanish side and in the English-speaking community, depending on where you live.
Right. And for the second part of your question, we are open to anyone. Any English speakers, some Spanish speakers as well. We're open to helping anyone, but we must make a point. We help with information. We provide information. So whether you need it now or whether you'll need it in the future, we'll be here ready to give you some advice and information.
Because we were saying before the show, weren't we, Mona, about the definition of the word charity is different in the US from in the UK.
Right. So we won't be doing the things, we won't be helping you directly. We won't be hands-on. Handing
money out, for example.
Yeah.
Or a company.
Although we do actually apply for grants and enable people to get grants and in some cases benefits. But no, we generally have a policy that we are here to help you help yourself. We believe that really by empowering people and people being able to do things for themselves, it helps them integrate better. So that, that's really important to us. But we do get lots of calls saying, hi, you're called Age in Spain. That sounds like you work with old people. Can you send a carer out to my loved one who is in Tenerife, for example? And we don't have we are not a care company. We don't provide that. We don't always direct people to private companies either. We may give them access to information, but we can't recommend individual private care companies. We can tell people how they should look at private care companies to make sure that they're safe, established well, registered, etc. But we don't have a solution. I think some people do think the word charity means that we are very hands-on. In some ways, in the casework side, the work I do with the veterans, and if anybody out there is a UK veteran, we have a dedicated email, veterans@ageinspain.org, for people there. And we do offer a little bit more connected support to them. But yeah, generally, we are not a hands-on charity who go out and physically pick people up off the floor and enable. We do enable things like Meals on Wheels by directing people into the system that provides it.
Exactly. We're here to help you navigate the system.
Yes.
There, and she's replying, wonderful. I will be in touch for help with ideas as to how I might best donate my time in my new country.
Great.
I look forward to hearing from you, Robin.
Brilliant. And Alan Machaffey has a question. Friend of ours applied for non-lucrative visa. The elder one who is eligible for S1 didn't get it registered in Spain. He's corrected that later. Looks like it's been rejected. They've had paperwork for 3 months. Any ideas?
Gosh.
Right. Unfortunately, we recommend in this case, and it's not the first time we've heard of this, we recommend that people contact the Overseas Health Service directly, because they'll be able to tell you why it's been rejected, what's wrong with it, if there was something wrong with the paperwork.
And if you get really stuck, the British Consulate have a healthcare team who can assist with the more problematic S1 applications. And if they have tried to register it and it's failed, I would recommend reaching out to the British Consulate team and see if they can actually assist you with the navigations. I actually had problems registering my children as dependents here, and I have to say they gave me a tremendous amount of help, and were the only people who could, despite me being a Spanish speaker, they were the only people who could help me with some kind of paperwork irregularity that had occurred.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's always good to hear. The British Embassy, certainly the British ambassador, has had a lot of stick recently because of the driving license exchange. He's had things thrown at him and everything, words thrown at him for quite a while now. But there's a good service there, and it is available to everyone in there. Okay, so how important is it to be proactive when it comes to setting up things like a power of attorney in case of ill health or chronic diseases, and how much should you involve family and friends?
I mean, this is a discussion not just in Spain. This is a wider discussion, isn't it? Really, I think many people, and I certainly have personal experience with this within my own family, that it's a very practical tool, but it is viewed in a certain manner by some people. There is a fear of people not wanting to set up power of attorneys because they feel they're going to lose power. And that people will take control, make decisions for them, and run away with their money. Whatever. There's many fears behind it for some people. However, I have found that the power of attorney is really important at a point when someone can no longer make decisions for themselves, navigate the banking system and other things. Really, it is important as we get older to have discussions with our families, and our families to have open discussions with us. I had long discussions within my own family about, this is there to help you. It's not for me to then manage your life in the way that I see fit. It is about you maintaining control for as long as possible. And it is worth speaking to a lawyer about, the degrees of control that you still have, because it's not a carte blanche either. If someone is mentally capable still, they still make their own decisions. However, at the point they can't, we have had so many cases where the spouse who is trying to manage, or the partner that is trying to manage, ends up not being able to access finances, not being able to make decisions. And it is extremely difficult in those circumstances. So, or people realize they need it, but it's too late because they have a diagnosis that then they need to go down a route where they need to be assessed as mentally capable to give a power of attorney, because there is abuse in the system as well. Let's not pretend it's just it's not without some of it issues. So yes, a power of attorney for me is really important. I remember watching a fantastic video, I think from one of the Cancer Macmillan charities or one of the dementia charities in the UK, that was basically just a family discussing openly about how a power of attorney would help everybody within the family context get the loved one that was suffering care at the right time, in the right place, in a manner where the family understand what they want and can be their advocates. And I think that's really, really important. Also now we are finding you need to make sure that you've got the right power of attorney and that it is documented in the right way, because if you are managing banks between countries, and something happens, there are different rules in different countries, and you need to make sure that you've got international documentation that can be used to access banking or wills or whatever in the other country, and to be able to transport that power of attorney from Spain to another country. That's very important. So we don't give advice on that, but we can signpost you to legal services who can help you with that.
Very good point. It's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, since a friend of mine died a few weeks ago, and suddenly I'm thinking we haven't got a will and we need to sort that out. And I'm thinking about who I name as my executor. Do I name my daughters who are in the UK, and what happens to them? I've got no idea what happens in Spain with the services and the system and everything. So I've set up at the point when the worst happens for somebody here to have power of attorney. And yes, you're talking about it's a limited power of attorney to deal with specific things that happen around death. So
you can compartmentalize sometimes what, whether somebody in the family takes health, another takes finances. I don't profess to be good at finances. I wouldn't put my hands up for that in my family. But also I think it's worth knowing that if you're here and you're alone and you don't have connections to family, which is quite common for varying reasons, that if you get dementia or become incapacitated at any point of your life, actually, in terms of age, and we see it with people who are in accidents, who end up with brain injuries or various things, there is a system in Spain through the judicial legal system where the state will take responsibility for you, and you will be given an advocate, an independent advocate, who will make the decisions on your behalf. So we have seen people, unfortunately, who've had a terrible circumstance or an illness where the state has taken responsibility, but an independent legal person has been acting on selling properties, making care decisions. So it's good to know that that's there. I have to say that is a very comforting thing, I think, to know that if you're in that circumstances, the Spanish social services and the legal service will take care of you. You will not be left.
That's good to know. Are there any benefits you can access if you get into trouble, or financial trouble, for example?
Well, again, that goes to your big slogan, it depends, because it depends on your residency, it depends on your country of origin. It did happen. We have seen in the economic crisis and in the pandemic, people have got into financial difficulty. We get calls a lot, don't we, Mona? We always have done, about, I was doing fine and then this has happened and now I'm not in good circumstances. And now with the rising cost of living and the very stagnant income increases that are not happening, we're seeing more and more people, particularly pensioners here. The pensions are not going as far as they used to go. So yes, call us and we can help you. But generally, we can say there is help from the Spanish system. It's a European country. It has its systems in place, and everything is means tested. But there is some access to help. It is, like any country, relying on state help to live is not easy. It's a minimum, and it makes life bearable to survive, but it's not an easy place to be living. And I think anybody who's living in that situation would testify to that. But it depends what your country of origin offers. And for example, if you were living here before 2021 and you are receiving a UK pension, you can apply still for the UK attendance allowance. However, things are changing. If you move to Spain, it's generally best to know about the benefit system here, what you're entitled to at which point of your residency, and understand, because you're living in Spain, generally everything will come from Spain. It is your competent authority.
Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of transportable benefits if you move from the UK, for example.
There have been, but things have changed with Brexit and rights and things. And again, it goes back to the competent authority of where you are deemed you lived and have worked, on what you will be entitled to. So it's not an easy question to answer. And we've certainly seen a lot of variability on what people can bring over, what people can access, and definitely the scenery has shifted with Brexit.
Mm-hmm. We were talking a few days ago about having temporary or permanent residency. Are there differences in terms of what's accessible?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Can you summarize that, or is it a big list?
Well, again, it depends on if you're working and contributing into the Spanish social security system. That is the number one. If you come here and you're on a work visa and you're working, I, as a working individual paying into the system, will get much more access to health and social care, as will my children as my dependents. So yes, definitely working makes a big difference. You're seen as contributing and then therefore entitled to things, but there are complexities within that as well. But yeah, if you are here, for example, on temporary residency, if you are looking to access help under the social security system for access to the lady dependency, you have to have been living here for 5 years.
Right.
Okay. So does anybody else on the live chat have any more questions? We're coming up to the hour, and I always like to keep it round about that length of time. So I know there's a delay on there. So while we're waiting for any more possible questions to come through, do either of you two have anything else that you can add?
I just wanted to mention that when you do contact the info line, and many people contact us with as brief messages as we've been receiving here on the live chat, we will ask you a detailed list of questions.
Yes.
Not trying to be intrusive. We just want to put everything in place. We want to find out where you're from, what passports you hold, how long you've been living here, or if you're planning to come here, when you'll be planning and where. Also, where you live is really important. How many dependents do you have? We ask all these questions. We ask if you are a veteran or not. Some people have contacted us, and then once presented with our list of questions through email, for example, they've sort of think, what's this? Why do you want all this information, especially in this age of people wanting to protect their privacy? We keep everyone's information very, very private.
Yeah.
But we have to know. We have to know your entire situation. So please, when you contact us, give us as much information as possible initially, and don't be alarmed when we ask more questions.
I think that's the source of much annoyance on places like Facebook and on social media, because people ask questions and they don't give very much information at all, even what kind of passports they hold and that kind of thing. So
well, I wouldn't recommend putting
answers.
that on. I wouldn't recommend putting that on on an open forum. We are, data protection compliant. So, but I know from the welfare side of things, when a complex case comes in, I need to know these things. I can't just, Imona can't just say, I've got someone who's 79 and very brief information. I need to ask these questions because everything is of relevance in terms of what we can direct them to, and we do not like to direct people to something that will end up going down a dead end. It's really important for us to understand your situation fully, to be able to signpost you to the right thing. And I think particularly when people are thinking of moving here, I think that's really important, because you don't want to make assumptions and then come here and find that everything is not as you were led to believe. So yeah, I mean, have a look if you're moving here. Have a look at our Moving to Spain guide, and then if it doesn't answer enough, get in contact with our information line, and we will try and help you. With specific questions. We can't cover everything in that Moving to Spain guide. There will always be individual questions, and we, when you ring us, may not be able to be the organisation to help you. We may be signposting you. I regularly sign people to local charities on the ground in the region where they're going to go for very specific information about a town or a region that they're going to live in as well.
So you're a great information hub, guiding people to where they can be helped.
Definitely. And we work with other charities. We work with the statutory. We have a good relationship, passing people between us and the statutory authorities too.
Alan Machaffey is saying, can anyone recommend a good funeral plan provider, or are the guys that stand in Carrefour just as good? That's an interesting one. I'd say, I think you're going to have to research that with ask the question down below, so anybody who watches this in the near future will be able to. They might recommend a good one.
In the case, look at what you're paying for. Look what they're giving you, because they don't promise everything, and look at the value for money that they're a business. They're trying to get their money, but make sure you read the small print in all these cases, and that you feel that they're reputable. It's good to speak to others about their experience, actually. Who's had a good experience with what.
Also, in the info line, we very rarely give specific recommendations.
Companies.
We don't recommend a certain bank. We don't recommend a certain tax lawyer. We have
care
to
companies.
Provide you lists. We can provide you information on how to find places.
That's right.
I will often give advice about care companies on how to select a care company safely. However, I am also likely to direct you to a local organisation if there is, for example, an age concern, or we have other lovely, wonderful charities working in the regions like Help Denier and other organisations. We would be signposting you to local people who may have a working knowledge, and they are very valuable because they also have a working knowledge of those who are practicing outside the boundaries of good too.
I think it would probably be a really good idea for me to do a whole show on funeral provision and all of that, all of the things surrounding end of life services. So
definitely,
I'll have a think about that, and maybe I'll be able to do some research and see which the best funeral plan provider is. And then, but it's something I can recommend, but you can't as a charity.
But if you don't have a funeral plan, definitely have a little squirrel hole in a bank somewhere that's got some money put aside, because it is expensive to die.
Yeah, sadly, you can't take it with you. You've just got to leave it all behind to pay for you going.
And if you're not paying, someone else is paying.
Yeah, that's a good point. If I go at the moment, then it's, if both of us go, rather than it's going to be my son and daughters that are going to have to pay for it. So yeah. So viewers, if you have any more questions or comments now, you'll have to put them in the YouTube comments below rather than the live chat, because that disappears after we shut up shop for the day, and you'll get the answers and help that you need. And of course, get into contact with Age in Spain for all those queries, and get yourself the Moving to Spain guide. Don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks to everybody who's clicked on the thing up here, QR code. And if you click on the little bell, the subscription bell, you'll be the first to know what's coming up each week on the live shows and those midweek videos that I put out on Wednesdays. And in a moment, I'll tell you who's on the show next week. But before that, let's everybody give a huge virtual hug and a kiss to Kate and Mona for being lovely and very, very helpful at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
lovely
you're welcome.
to link with you all.
Brilliant. You're welcome back anytime, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
We loved it.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
So on next Saturday's show, I will be talking to Chris from Upsticks. You've heard of him, haven't you? So why not ask questions in advance on our YouTooSpain Facebook community? There's a link to that below. And we'll see you next Saturday morning at our regular time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland or the Canary Islands, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. Thank you to everybody on the live chat who's joined us today. You know who you are. and Elaine Smith, hello there, and thank you to everybody there. So that's all for this week. Someone pass around the Age in Spain cookies. Peace and love to you all. And here's one final message from all of us here at YouTooSpain. Take it away, lads. Bye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.